When you're new to Mechabellum, the hardest part isn't just learning the rules, it's figuring out what every unit does. There are a lot of them, and each one plays a specific role on the battlefield. Some are great at dealing damage, others are built to soak it up. Some are specialists, others are all-rounders. In this video, I'll walk you through every unit in the game and break down, in plain language, what it's meant to do. No deep stats or theory crafting, just the essentials. If you're looking to build better armies and stop feeling overwhelmed, you're in the right place. Let's start with the crawlers. They're a classic example of a chaff unit that's Mechabellum lingo for cheap disposable frontline troops. Their main job? To soak up enemy fire and buy time for your heavy hitters in the back to deal damage safely, and crawlers are great at it. Each squad has 24 individual units, which means they can absorb a huge number of single-target shots. They're also fast. So early in the game, try placing them behind your slower units. That way, they don't rush too far ahead and leave your backline out of range. But here's the kicker. If crawlers do reach their target, they hit hard. They absolutely melt anything on the ground that isn't built specifically to counter chaff. The other big contender is the Fang. Compared to crawlers, Fangs are slower, have fewer units per squad, and each one has less health. But they make up for it with one key advantage: ranged attacks. They can start dealing damage before ever taking a hit. And they can shoot air units too, which crawlers can't. Fangs also have the potential to scale into carry units. With the right tech upgrades, especially extended range and damage boosts, they go from cannon fodder to serious threats. There's also the portable shield tech, which lets each Fang survive one extra hit, no matter how strong. And that slower speed? It's not always a downside. It actually helps Fangs sync better with slower units in your army, and lets you predict enemy contact zones more accurately. All in all, Fangs are more versatile than they look, and with a little support, they can punch way above their weight. The cheapest unit that performs great against chaff is the Arclight. It specializes in this role, whether it's facing crawlers or Fangs. You can make the unit a bit more versatile by unlocking the charge shot technology, which weakens it against chaff but significantly boosts its performance against other types of units. Carry Arclight is also not an uncommon sight. Its biggest weakness? Very durable units or ones with long-range single-target attacks. One such example is the Marksman. Marksman is a long-range, high-damage unit focused on single targets. But in practice, it's most often used to counter flying threats like Overlords, Phoenixes, or Phantom Rays. Just be careful not to overcommit to Marksman early. They don't contribute much in chaff-heavy early fights and fall off in the late game, and when it comes to raw range and firepower, they're simply outclassed by Stormcrawlers. Long-range rocket launchers built to delete anything slow or stuck in combat. Massive damage, explosive area of effect, but they've got clear weaknesses. They can't target air units. They have a minimum range. Get too close and they're helpless. And since they use missile-type attacks, they're vulnerable to intercepts. A single well-placed Mustang can ruin their entire barrage. Mustangs are your go-to hybrid, part chaff, part anti-chaff. They excel at taking down air units and swarming ground targets. Their high squad count makes them resilient, and their rapid-fire shots mean minimal overkill, great for consistent pressure. Most players run them with Missile Interceptor as a support unit, but don't sleep on carry Mustangs with range and damage upgrades. But there's a catch. They deal low damage per shot, which makes them especially weak against armor. Armor blocks a flat amount of damage from every hit, making it extremely effective against high fire rate units like Mustangs. One of the cheapest armored counters, the trusty Hound. They fall somewhere between chaff and anti-chaff. Cheap, fast, and armed with short-range area damage. But what really makes them shine is their flexibility. With the right techs, hounds can play multiple roles. Need support? Equip fire extinguisher and stop incoming burn damage. Want to deal the burn? Go for incendiary rockets instead. Looking for a frontline tank? Armor turns them into tough little bulldogs. Or maybe you want them to carry? Boost their range and trigger mechanical rage for a full-on DPS push. Hounds are one of the most versatile units in the game, but they do have a weakness: heavy, high HP targets. Units like the Tarantula can shrug off their damage and tear through them with ease. The Tarantula's primary role: deleting chaff. It's tanky, hits in an area, and clears swarms with ease. If it picks up some early experience, it can even take over as a frontline anchor, soaking hits while dishing out steady damage. In 2 versus 2 especially, spider mines are a solid tech pick, giving tarantulas an edge against heavier units or absorbing key enemy shots. Most of the time, though, this unit is all about tempo. You deploy it early, win the round, then sell it off to pivot into something with better scaling. It's a short-term power play, and it works. If you're looking for a similar unit that trades area damage for raw single-target power, look no further than the Sabertooth. The Sabertooth shares one thing with the Tarantula: it loses steam as the game goes on. Its attack speed is painfully slow, which makes clearing chaff a real struggle. But when those heavy claws connect with enemy tanks or high HP units, oh yeah, it hits hard. It's not irreplaceable in the late game, but in the early rounds, nothing melts single targets quite like the Sabertooth. Next up, the Sledgehammers. And let's be honest, I won't even pretend to be neutral here. This is easily one of the most beloved units in the Mechabellum community. They're like toy cars from your childhood. It said Ferrari on the box, but one day it was a skateboard. The next, a spaceship. Same deal with Sledgehammers. Need a pseudo-chaff that ignores splash damage? You got it. Want a tank with healing and armor? No problem. How about a full-blown carry with range, mechanical rage, and armor-piercing bullets? Yep, that's on the table too. They're average at just about everything, which weirdly makes them great. But don't get too comfortable. There are counters, and one of the best: the Scorpion, a unit made specifically to bully medium-sized threats like these. My zodiac sign is Leo, and as we all know, Leos and Scorpios, not compatible. Enter the Scorpion, a unit that absolutely ruins the ground game and sometimes forces you to go airborne. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little, but not by much. These things deal massive area damage. Not ideal against chaff. They tend to overkill every target. But against anything else, they roll over the battlefield like a bad mood. There is no number of Scorpions that wouldn't make me nervous. So what can we do about it? Simple: deploy the Phoenix, a flying unit built to take down single targets. It's basically a marksman with wings. Huge range, low HP, tends to overkill anything too small. But when it comes to enemy air units, giants, or just enforcing sky justice, the Phoenix does it all. Most players upgrade its range, but you'll often see quantum reassembly or even charge shot for bonus impact. And since this is our first air unit spotlight, a quick tip: flying units always look slower than they actually are. So trust me, deploy them further back than your instincts tell you. Wasps are a swarm of small flying drones, basically airborne chaff. They shine in matchups where the enemy runs heavy ground-based anti-chaff, and we need to buy more time, like stalling against melting points. Wasps are cheesy, both in the early game and late game. They're very easy to counter, with Mustangs, Fangs, or even a Fortress rocking the anti-air barrage. Their attack type is extremely flexible, letting them hit both small targets and giants. Most of the time, Wasps are used as a support unit. Force a reaction, switch the flank, repeat. Sometimes you'll see carry Wasps, especially if you luck into an improved Wasp unit variant. But if your opponent needs an answer, there's one unit that eats squishy flyers for breakfast: Typhoon. You know, Typhoon kind of reminds me of a Lego set I had as a kid. Actually, scratch that. It's way cooler. Typhoon isn't a unit you can unlock the usual way. You need to get lucky with a drop or have the right specialist. It functions a lot like the Mustang. High DPS, consistent damage, can melt almost anything. But here's the difference. Typhoon squads are slower, larger, and meaner. No missile interceptor, no range upgrade, so they're not really made to be carries. Instead, they've got something else. Shield generator. Use that, abuse that. Typhoons are the counter to airborne swarms, especially Wasps. Place them on the flank, let their shields soak up missile device shots, and clean the skies. A unit that Typhoons just can't seem to deal with, no matter how universal they try to be, is the Steel Ball. Yeah, that little laser-spitting nightmare. Steel Balls are often paired with Crawlers, and for good reason. The two complement each other perfectly. Crawlers clear the trash, Steel Balls focus down the big stuff. And the longer it stays locked on, the higher the damage ramps. So it's pretty obvious what they're good against. Ground-based giants, heavy units, anything that doesn't die too fast, tarantulas, Vulcans, even melting points. Yeah, they all get cooked. As long as it's not a scorpion, scorpions still ruin the fun. What's interesting about Steel Balls is how snowbally they are. Coincidence? I think not. Once they gain some experience, their power level spikes hard, especially if you give them range upgrades. Now, since we're talking about units with that heat-charged death beam, let's take a look at the melting point. This is the ultimate counter to single-target fights, both ground and aerial. In some games where you control the chaff wars, the melting point can seem unstoppable. It's hard to find a weak spot in a unit with such range that destroys shields, giant units, and everything that flies. Except Wasps. Yep, I counter it with Wasps, and for a ground answer, we have Stormcallers. I'm bringing this up because honestly I struggled with this unit for a long time. I think the Scorpion might have to step aside as the most annoying unit. Most often people add extra range technology to the melting point, but there's no tech you can't use. Feel free to experiment with EMP rockets, energy diffraction, and crawler production. Personally, I always bring crawler production to the battle. It's a game changer when fighting other melting points. No unit in Mechabellum is truly overpowered, but if we were to conduct a poll and ask players to point out one, I think around 40% would say melting point. The remaining 60% would likely pick another unit, Fortress. Oops, wrong picture. I meant Fortress, the Thor of Mechabellum, a unit that can seamlessly fit into almost any composition. Its most common role? Guarding your carry units with a shield generator. The Fortress itself attacks similarly to a Sabertooth, but scales much better. It's a ground unit that directly counters Scorpions, which is already a huge plus. Fortress has always had a place in the meta. When used as a support, it synergizes with practically any ground-based carry. And if you decide to upgrade it and turn it into a carry unit itself, the cost efficiency is surprisingly good. Alright, since we're on the topic of controversial units, let's put the Seer under the spotlight. A support unit that, just like the Typhoon or Fire Badger, can't even be unlocked without a unit drop or a specialist. In my opinion, the Seer has the best EMP in the game. Cheap area of effect, and thanks to its rapid fire rate, it spreads the effect to multiple targets in no time. Another tech worth noting is photon coating, and no other unit applies it as effectively as the Seer. In rare cases, you might consider Missile Interceptor, though don't expect Mustang-level performance, it's noticeably weaker here. What really makes this unit frustrating is its versatility. Sometimes it drops like a gift from the gods, completely countering an opponent trying to pull off an air-based strategy. It's fast, has great range, AoE damage, and yet you rarely see players build more than two. And since I already brought up fire badgers when talking about unlock conditions, well, that's pretty much where the similarities with the far Seer end. Fire badgers are the cheapest way to bring fire into the match. Just splash some oil and burn the enemy army to a crisp. They're great against chaff, but they move at this weird in-between speed, slower than crawlers, faster than fangs, making their placement a bit of an art form. What makes them even spicier is their incredibly cheap range upgrade. With such a short base range, that small investment leads to a big boost in usefulness. Master Q, known in Europe as Confucius, once said, "The scorpion stings only those who walk barefoot." Well, he was wrong. Even if you wear boots, the scorpion will still slap those fire badgers into next week. One unit that actually holds its own pretty well against both the scorpion and the fire badger is the Rhino, yet another animal-themed name. It's a pretty niche unit, rarely the core of any composition, but oh boy, Rhino is the cheesiest unit in the entire game. Its main purpose in most matches, walk straight into the enemy tower and tear it down. Simple, brutal, effective. It also does surprisingly well if it manages to sneak into the enemy backline and start smashing Stormcallers. Personally, it's my favorite unit in the game. I genuinely believe you can force it into any match. Just pair it with a mobile beacon, get it into position, and then sell it for a solid chunk of value. And if you're feeling spicy, Final Blitz is a fun tech. If your opponent parks their army too close to the front line, boom, half of it disappears in a glorious explosion. Just be careful. Steel balls and any form of EMP will slow it down and prevent it from even getting close enough to take a single swing with its little punchy paws. Rhino can also be countered by the Hacker, another niche unit that can still be a real pain when played right. It takes control of ground unit, so ideally you want enemy Hacker hacking crawlers, not say your fortress. The best way to counter a Hacker is usually with something airborne. But most opponents will instinctively start building anti-air the moment they sense you're going that route. In my own matches, what's worked best is a couple of Mustangs backed by light air support and shield generators. Since hackers only deal 33% damage to shields, they buy you a lot of breathing room. Oh, and here's a twist. Hackers can also generate a shield, just like Typhoons. Not a bad tech option if you've positioned them well and want to protect key areas. One of the air units that really shines against hackers is the Phantom Ray. It's easily the most versatile 200 supply flyer in the game. Its role sits somewhere between the Wasp and the Phoenix, a sort of hybrid with its own strengths. Phantom Ray is surprisingly tanky for a flying unit. It deals decent splash damage, but it still hits pretty hard against single targets too. The biggest downside, and it's a big one, is that it uses rockets. And rockets, they're pretty easy to shoot down, which often disqualifies Phantom Rays from being a true carry option. That said, they can spill oil, which makes them a great synergy pick with Hounds or Fire Badgers. But in my opinion, their most interesting upgrade is armor. Why? Because putting armor on a flying unit means suddenly it's not getting shredded by Fangs, Mustangs, or even Typhoons. That's a massive shift in air game dynamics. Alright, back to giant units, and next up is the Vulcan. Think of it as a bigger, badder Fire Badger. Slower, tankier, stronger. Vulcan doesn't just delete chaff, it melts it. And yes, it's also surprisingly effective against carry units like sledgehammers. But make no mistake, this thing is the ultimate chaff counter. Just the fact that its attacks ignite oil is already toxic enough. But Vulcan can also be equipped with incendiary rockets and oil rockets, spreading flames like it's trying to barbecue the whole battlefield. And that's exactly how you'll usually see a Vulcan built. You're minding your own business, playing a calm, orderly game, and suddenly this thing rolls in with a full rocket kit and slaps you with 2,000 damage before you even know what hit you. The best counters, a good number of missile interceptors, Hounds with fire extinguishers, and of course, shields. Lots and lots of shields. Next up, the Sandworm. Looks like a worm straight out of Arrakis. just, fully mechanical. It travels underground, which makes it a hard counter to anything that relies on long range, because here, range means nothing. Its main role is tanking hits from units that deal high single-target damage, but not quite enough of it. Think marksmen, think phoenixes. What's more, it actually performs well against the melting point. That death ray needs time to heat up, and when a sandworm pops up right under its feet, it often doesn't get the chance. My go-to upgrade? Burrow maintenance, underground healing. It's incredibly useful, especially in 2 versus 2 games where skirmishes are scattered and there are more towers to tunnel under. The extra sustain lets Sandworm stay relevant deep into longer, messier fights. Next up, Wraith. Yeah, I probably should have mentioned it earlier, but I kinda forgot it existed. Only remembered when I went to the fridge for a delicious donut. True story. Wraith is a flying unit equipped with 4 independent autocannons that deal area damage. Absolute menace when it comes to clearing chaff, and a nightmare for Wasps. You can run it as a semi-tank, kind of like a Phantom Ray, or as a support unit with the Degeneration Beam upgrade. That tech slows enemies and makes them take more damage. It's gross in the best way. You counter the tech with photon coating and the unit itself, good old marksman will do the trick. Now it's time for Ryden, Mechabellum's electrifying answer to mid-sized threats, both in the air and on the ground. In a way, it plays a similar role to the Scorpion. Funny how both names come straight out of Mortal Kombat, and just like in that game, Ryden doing pretty similar job, zapping stuff into oblivion. Lately, you'll often see Ryden paired with Hounds. The combo's simple but brutal. Hounds clean up the chaff, and Rydens take care of whatever's left. Efficient, nasty, beautiful. The biggest threat in the skies? That would be the Overlord. It's a bit pricier than Ryden, but shares the same counters. Marksmen, phoenixes, fangs. That said, the Overlord absolutely melts single targets. Giant units, heavy hitters, that's its playground. Just like the Seer, it comes with photon emission, and it even fires similar rockets. Only these are harder to intercept and hit a lot harder. The real kicker? The Overlord scales insanely well. At a certain point, its stats just outpace most other units. When that happens, your only reliable counter might be the melting point. Everything else just can't keep up. War Factory. Now we're entering Titan-class territory. Massive price tag, constant upkeep, and a presence that demands respect. Just owning this beast drains your resources every round. But oh, is it worth it? Unlike standard units, War Factory comes packed with extra tech options. It can manufacture other units, matching its own tech level. And the War Factory itself? Think of it as a supercharged Scorpion. Tougher, longer range, faster fire rate. And you'll already know how I feel about Scorpions. The Mechabellum community is divided. Half say War Factory is useless. The other half think it's busted. Guess which half I'm in? Its missile interceptor is the best in the game, hands down. So the only real counters? Melting point or a dedicated carry wasp, since the factory can't produce anything that can reliably deal with swarms of angry flying bees. Well, almost. We need to put some more of those wasps up and maybe give them ignite. Last but not least, the Abyss. Another Titan-class unit, another upkeep drain, and a fresh addition to the roster. And let's be honest, for now the community kind of agrees. Abyss is underwhelming. Better than it used to be, sure. Recent buffs gave it some bite. But it's still looking for a proper home in the meta. It attacks with a giant laser beam that can hit like a truck if it lands just right. Its most interesting tech? Disintegration now activates right at the start of battle, slowing down chunks of your army and chipping away at their health percentage-wise. That's the one competitive angle that's actually working so far. But hey, it's early days. Tomorrow morning I'll probably lose a game to it and change my entire worldview. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like. Next episodes will dive into more advanced topics, something closer to the original Fang Wars breakdown. Still, with so many new players joining the game, I figured it was worth giving each unit a quick spotlight. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon, either on the battlefield or in the next video.